Are you trying to land your first nursing contract? Not sure how to go about convincing a local facility to work with your agency? Landing your first contract may seem like a daunting task. Today is your lucky day. I want to share some valuable insights on how to land nursing agency contracts. At Passive Workforce, we specialize in teaching people how to start, grow, and sell their companies. And trust me, when it comes to securing these first few contracts, I've seen it all. Starting your staffing agency can be both exciting and challenging, but I'm here to equip you with personal tips, clever methods, and proven tricks that have helped not only me, but also countless clients in the healthcare industry. The demand for skilled nurses is ever increasing, and there's a massive opportunity for you to thrive in this field. So whether you're just starting out or looking to expand your existing agency, this video is for you. Throughout this video, I'll guide you through the step-by-step process of securing nursing agency contracts. The first thing that I want to discuss is identifying potential clients. It's really important for you to determine what niche you're going to go after. A lot of us who are just getting started obviously want to place everywhere, but it's going to be a little better for you to kind of niche down and know exactly what sort of positions you plan on staffing, whether it's going to be RNs, LPNs, CNAs, or other medical staff, and what sort of facilities that you plan on placing them in. Hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, assisted living, are you going to be working with home care agencies, or are you going to be staffing directly at medical offices? It's really up to you. But once you know exactly what niche you're going after, it's going to shape the rest of your marketing strategy and how you're going to outreach and discover new opportunities. So let's just take the example of landing hospitals. That's what most people think about going after first, because hospitals are large, they have varied staff, and they're good placement opportunities. When you're trying to land a hospital, think about what sort of unit you want to staff. Are you going to be going after med-surg placements or the emergency room, ICU, or are you going to be focusing on nursing administration? You really have a bunch of options. But once you really settle in on what sort of facility and what sort of professions you plan on staffing, it's really important to understand how to customize your list of targets. You see, one thing that I do when I'm going into a new market is that I go to the local Department of Health website. So most healthcare facilities are licensed, if not all of them are licensed. And if they're licensed by some sort of licensing body. It's usually the Department of Health, Department of Public Health, Department of Social Services. You get the picture. So if you go to those sites, you can look up all of the licensed facilities and you can build your list from there. Or you can do a simple Google search and start getting directories online that show you all of the facilities that are in the radius that you're covering. Once you have those facilities, it's going to be in your best interest to start figuring out who the key decision makers are at that facility. For example, if you go to the Florida directory, it's an awesome directory because you are able to filter down to the type of facility, and then it's going to list off how many beds the facility has, so you get a sense of how large it is, and who are the key people that are registered and licensed with the state. So it'll show you who's the hospital CEO, who's the administrator, who's the nursing director, and those are usually going to be key people who either are going to be the final decision maker or able to point you in the direction of who could get you a contract. Just remember that if you're going after hospitals first, most hospitals are in a VMS network, which means there's an intermediary that is managing the relationships between the hospitals and the agencies. And you may not be contracting directly with the hospital, but through a VMS. So if you're going to be going down that path, just start researching some of the most popular VMSs in your area, or allow the hospital to tell you that they're working with a third party and give you the contact for that third party so that you could be part of their provider list. Once you know who you are targeting, you need to start crafting compelling proposals. Your offer is going to basically come down to three things: rates, quality of services, and meeting the true needs of the client. Before you start pitching facilities, it's important for you to determine your rates. And the reason it's important is because you don't want to negotiate a horrible rate that you're never going to make money on or you're never going to be able to hire anybody to. So to do this basic market research, you're going to first need to know what are the salary expectations of the workforce that you plan on hiring. Now, I've done a full webinar that you can find on passiveworkforce.com covering how to do this market research to determine your rates. But just as a rule of thumb, once you get an average of what people are expecting as far as salary for the type of positions that you're posting, you're going to want to mark that base rate up by 1.5 times. So if it's $40 an hour, your billing rate should be $60 an hour. That gives you enough room to pay your mandatories like employment taxes, workers' comp, disability, etc. With the rest is going to be your profit margin. If you go below that, you start to kind of go into a territory where you might not be making money or risk even being at a deficit after you cover all your cost. But once you have these rates in mind, let's just say it's $50 for RNs, $40 for LPNs, and $30 for CNAs. Let's just using some broad numbers here. You're going to apply your markup to those positions, and you're going to have a rate sheet. Now, if you need any help with these sort of things, of course, we help with that. But your rate sheet should have a few things on there. It should have a billing code for each sort of service line that you're going to be offering. It should have a description of that service line. So if it's RNs, Med-Surg, or RN, ICU, or just flat out RN, hospital, and then a rate, which is going to be your billing rate. That's going to be included as an exhibit in your staffing contract. So your staffing contract is going to have all the basic language, and then you're going to have this exhibit sheet that goes over your rates and your rate expectations. Usually when you're pitching a facility and they're asking you to send documentation, they're going to want you to send over their contract as well as your rate sheet. Now, some more experienced facilities who don't really want to have a bunch of individual contracts with a bunch of different agencies will have their own contract and rate sheet. And sometimes in negotiations, they'll just give that to you and say, these are the terms, you either agree or you don't. Either way, you're going to need to have your basic forms ready, because in smaller facilities or like doctor's offices, for example, they don't have complicated legal systems and legal teams to help manage their contracting. So they're going to be dependent on your contract and your rates before moving forward. So you need to have that settled. If you're finding this information valuable, please do me a favor, subscribe to our channel and share this video with your business partners or even the staff that are helping you to get contracts. Additionally, if you want one-on-one assistance or access to our online courses, check out the links below. We hold monthly mentoring sessions, have hours of useful information deep diving into these topics, providing one-on-one coaching, and even help agencies get launched from scratch. Feel free to reach out to a member of our team, as there are people who are ready to help you get the job done. The next thing to consider is getting in front of the decision makers. Let's talk about networking strategies and building strong relationships within healthcare facilities to showcase your agency's unique value proposition. To be honest, most of your contracts are going to come from well-established relationships. They're not going to come from cold inquiries. So if you have an established network, if you're working at a facility that is already using agencies, it's important for you to start talking to those facilities about what you're going to be doing and what you're going to be offering. They're more likely to work with you as someone that they've worked with already than a stranger who's emailing them cold. Make sure that you start to establish your network of potential decision makers so that when you do go live, you have some people to talk to who are going to give you an honest response and at least give you the time of day to pitch your services. Now, if you don't have a network, here are some things that you can do to start establishing one. Go on Facebook, find all your friends and family members who have worked in the healthcare industry. Try to leverage their networks. Try to have them introduce you to key people that they have well-established relationships with. You could also go to sites like LinkedIn and start reaching out to key decision makers and start to engage them online. A really clever tip is that if you find a key decision maker who is also active on social media, like they post articles and they're constantly doing training videos on LinkedIn or on YouTube, start following them, start engaging them. Start showing them that you're interested in the topics that they're covering. Because as a content creator myself, there's a part of the ego that needs to be rubbed. And if you start to establish that, people remember your little avatar. People remember your handle. People remember the positive feedback that you give. So when you do come in, you're no longer just a stranger. You're that person that's been giving recommendations, congratulating them on new contents and new accomplishments. That's just another way to build that relationship. Now, if you do have to come in cold, I always recommend trying to move the conversation to a point of more intimacy. What do I mean by more intimacy? Is that you want to be as close as possible to the decision maker. When you're emailing somebody, you're coming in super cold. It's easy to just delete an email and, forward you to the spam box. Nobody really wants that sort of interaction in their work email. Phone calls coming in cold are also pretty difficult because there isn't an established relationship. You're just a voice on the phone. Think about all the telemarketers who call you that may even be selling things that you might need, like a website or accounting services, but you're quick to dismiss them and cut them off. Why? Because it's a very kind of distant, cold conversation. Now think about the door-to-door salesman when they knock on your door. It's hard to just slam the door in their face because you now have a person in front of you. So what you want to do, even if you're coming in cold via email or phone, you want to try to move the conversation to a place of greater intimacy. Try to get that face-to-face meeting. If you get the face-to-face meeting, your closing rate is going to go up a lot higher because they get to see you, trust you, know that you're local, know that you're someone that is vested in their best interest, And it's harder to tell you no. So if you get somebody on the phone, try to just introduce yourself and move to a more intimate place. You get them on the phone, try to get a face-to-face meeting. You have a face-to-face meeting, try to get them to have lunch with you. Eventually, that relationship is going to get really well defined, and they're going to give you their honest opinion as to whether or not they can work with you, if their facility is restricting new contracts, or if there's another facility that they used to work at that they could even introduce you to a decision maker there. Getting to a more intimate place changes the game completely. And speaking about some of the clever tips that you could try to actually accelerate things, one thing that I used to do is that if I've been calling facilities, I got a contract in someone's hands, but I'm not really getting a response, I would just do the surprise pop-up. Again, it's harder for people to shoo you away if you're standing right in the lobby. Show up at the reception desk, let them know that you've been in conversations with whoever that DON is and that you're just in the neighborhood. This works better in smaller facilities like small hospitals or skilled nursing facilities. University hospitals, this is not going to work, okay? They're not going to let you through. But a small facility can easily call the director of nursing and she'll pop out and say, hey, right now is not a good time. But if you get them to pop out and see you face to face, it's an opportunity for you to say, hey, I understand it's not a good time. I sent you a contract last week. How about we set up a meeting for lunch, or I could kind of sponsor a lunch and have a conversation with you about rates or kind of clear up any questions you may have. Now you have them on the spot. They said that you don't have a meeting. You're there in the building. The way to get their attention is a meeting. So what are they going to do? They're going to say, all right, let's figure out where I could get you on the schedule. That works really well. Another strategy that one of my clients is using is working really well for him. He's a physical therapist. He's applying to all physical therapy jobs, and in the interviews themselves, pitching the human resource director or the director of physical therapy or the owner of the agency. And he is closing at a high rate. Why? Because he knows that there's an immediate need. They've already shortlisted him and saying that his resume was good enough to work with. If there's a need and they were already going to work with him, why not work with him and his agency? It improves the conversion rate. So you might want to use that strategy as well. Apply for jobs, show up, and start selling yourself, not as the employee, but as the agency that's going to help them meet their staffing needs. The last thing that I want to discuss is something that I've noticed most people get wrong. Most new entrepreneurs are over-optimistic about their future conversion ratios on their sales efforts. I want to set the expectations and share keys to success. We wouldn't be getting into business unless we thought we could make money and land clients, right? So when we start thinking about our first contracts, we think, oh my God, there's such a need for nurses. It's going to be so easy. I know they're dying for nurses. I'm going to call them up and they're going to just want to work with my agency. The reality is, in most cases, you're coming in cold. So there's no real incentive for them. Even though they have the need, you're still a stranger. You're still someone who's trying to sell them something. No one likes to be sold anything. So in reality, what happens is that your conversion ratio is going to be pretty low. It's going to be around like 1 to 3% a year on 100 leads. So if you have 100 people on your list, expect to close about 3 of them per year if you're coming in 100% cold. Again, you don't know if they're working with agencies. You don't know where they are on their budget. They don't know you. So if you set your expectation to that 3% conversion ratio, then you know that you have to do 2 things. You have to pick up your call volume and your outreach volume so that you have as many facilities on your list as possible. Because if you're only going to close 3% and you're calling 10 facilities, that means you're going to convert 0 contracts. So try to get that number up to at least 100. That's like my rule of thumb. Any sales rep that's working for me, they have to have their core 100 that they're reaching out to. If they can expand that to beyond 100, whether it's by geography or by facility type, we expand to as many numbers as we can, because the bigger the audience that you're pitching to, even though you're only closing 3% of them, you're going to land more and more contracts. So it is a volume thing. And the other thing that you need to consider is that you have to be thinking about persistence. You have to re-engage those people, because you email somebody, it turns into a phone call, it turns into a meeting, they have your contract in their hands. They're still not in a rush to sign. They have their job to do. Their job is to run that facility, not to just sign off on contracts. Your job as a business development person is to get people signed up. So the priorities are different. That contract might be sitting on their desk. They may be very interested, but they're getting caught up in a survey, or they're on a hiring frenzy and their mind is on other things. So you're going to need to follow up with those people. Soft nudges by email, phone calls periodically. Again, the random pop-up. You have to let them know that you still exist and that you're still interested in their business. Those follow-ups are what are really going to convert your future contracts. You can't just expect to send a contract, cross your fingers, have them send it back. Very few decision makers are that prompt and quick to get things done that way. They usually need an additional nudge. So the takeaways here: increase your output, increase your call volume, and make sure that you follow up regularly. This is why it's important to have good CRM systems in place that are going to nudge you or also automate some of those processes so it's not so heavy on you. And it's good to have kind of a check-in on your staff if you have business development staff to see what is their rate of follow-up. Make sure that they're not letting any warm leads go cold or go forgotten. So there you have it. You're now armed with the information that you need to land contracts. Before you close out this video and start selling your services, I highly recommend that you check out this video right here to make sure that you have all your bases covered when it comes to placing your first staff member.